All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome back, sir.
Okay.
Finally, let's give him a warm welcome. Thank you so much, Dr. Babajide, for joining us today.
The pleasure is all mine. For some very strange reasons, my mic just decided not to work. My apologies for the gap um, in my coming in. All right. So I want to thank the organizers for putting this together. Uh, have been a very passionate person about mental health for many, many years. When I see people who come together, put their team together to organize something this profound, I usually just, thank you, Eniola. I usually just don't like to gloss over it. And I want to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's such an honor to be the keynote speaker. And I have about 30 minutes, 40 minutes thereabouts. I think perhaps part of that had been used. That being said, I'm speaking on bridging the gap in Africa's mental health landscape with an understanding about healing, awareness, and empowerment. The reality is that we're in very interesting times. We're in very, very, permit me to say difficult times. Economy globally hasn't been very, very palatable. We're in a time also where change is so constant that if you're not careful, you'll be loyal to what has expired. So if change is a constant, one of the things that we need to begin to look at is to begin to think differently about mental health. And just like Precious said, mental health shouldn't be a luxury. At the moment, mental health is a luxury for Africans, sadly so. But that's the reality. But I want you to approach my conversation this morning from the mindset that we need to make the future a compensation for the past. How do I mean? Up till now, even in the National Assembly, there's still a lot of back and forth with, being able to, scale up the mental health, law. I think the last one, whether that was in the 70s or in the 80s, I can't remember. That's how bad we have been as a country. So when we are talking about bridging the gap, I want to use this medium to call on every one of us to not just attend this meeting, but also to make up their minds to live as advocates. And being an advocate does not need certification, as it were. Part of what you can do after this session is to pick up some of the, things that we will share with you and just put it on your status. Just being there to encourage people, and ensure that you are part of the movement. I believe that this is not just an organization. I believe that this is a drive. This is a movement to change the face of, mental health in Nigeria, particularly, and in Africa as a whole. And just to let you also understand, there's a lot of politics when it comes to mental health. There's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of religious undertone when it comes to mental health. So, mental health in Africa, particularly Nigeria, is still an afterthought. Many times you see organizations don't even allow for psychological safety. Recently I was still speaking to one of my colleagues, and I was saying I mean, even in the United Kingdom, that yeah, it's on the wall that everyone should be psychologically safe, but the behavioral patterns doesn't show that there's an embrace for psychological safety. That being said, Africa is rich. We're very rich in culture. We're diverse. Unfortunately, the mental health landscape remains largely, undeserved. As rich as our culture is, as rich as, I mean, if you go to restaurants globally, You find out that our Afro pop is scaling. You find jollof rice scaling. Our food is rich. Unfortunately, there's a lot of lack of understanding of what mental health really means back in Africa, particularly in Nigeria. Don't forget also we're dealing with the stereotypes. Many stereotypes about mental health about someone who's already picking paper, so bridging the gap for me starts with you and I creating space without judgment, creating safe spaces. That's what I would call it. Now, what's a safe space? A safe space is a place where you can speak to someone and you don't feel that they will judge you by being vulnerable. Where they feel where the person who is speaking doesn't feel that you will hear whatever you have discussed with him or her just a few weeks down the line. All right. And I came up with an acronym that I want to start with, and is about love. It's LOVE, very simply put, and the L stands for, if we're going to bridge the gap as individuals, we have to learn to listen to understand, not listen to respond. Many times, I've found out that the African culture has a culture of giving unsolicited counsel. Aunties and uncles, there's that, out of the lack of boundary that comes with our community life. I've seen people who just feel that they should, because they're their auntie and their uncle, they should have access to your life. It's not a bad thing if, I mean, the approach is right, but unfortunately it has left us with a culture where many people have not created safe spaces for people to hear out what their challenges is. All right. Then the O stands for, you have to be open hearted. You see, flexibility, adaptability, they're the hallmark of mental health. The more flexible you are, the more adaptable you are, the more open you will be. When we first got married, I used to tell my wife, she would say, "Oh, that's the way they do it." I'm like, "No, there's nothing like that's the way they do it." Now, that statement puts people in a box. And if you're from the African descent, you find out that those are part of the languages that our fathers, rubbed on our face. Oh, that's the way they do it. Yes, there are things that can be compromised. But also, I believe that in a changing world, one thing that you have to deliberately grow is your adaptive ability to be adaptable, your adaptable ability to be flexible. Oh, someone asked me, so what's the difference between being flexible and being adaptable? Now, flexibility is a short-term thing. Is okay, being able to adjust to now maybe I'm not in the tropic weather again, I'm now in the cold weather region, but adaptability is long term. Okay, so if you will be part of the people that will bridge the gap for mental health, you have to first learn how to be adaptable. Okay, you learn to need to be open-hearted enough to be flexible enough. All right, I don't want to flog that because I've got just about 30 to 40 minutes. Then the V is, you have to learn to be vulnerable. Now, vulnerability comes with many parts, and part of vulnerability is your ability to validate emotions. Don't ever say to someone who is down that with your degree you are down. No, or people like you should not be down. No, no, no. You have to learn to be vulnerable, and you have to learn to validate emotions. If someone comes to you and says, "I'm feeling depressed," don't start with counsel. First, validate it, that their feeling is valid, okay? That what they're thinking about, what they're going through is valid, and that helps a great deal. Then the E is encouragement, self-encouragement first. The good book, there's somewhere in the good book where the Bible says that, and David encouraged himself in the Lord. If you're not in my faith, I'm sorry, but I just wanted to reference that self-encouragement, that ability to, in changing times, you are able to ensure that you find encouragement. The greatest hands that can be of help to you are the ones attached to your shoulder blades. All right. And you have to be able to look into the mirror and encourage yourself when things are now. You can't give what you don't have. Right. So when you find things resolved internally, then you'll be able to resolve that externally. Now, when we talk about the state of mental health in Africa, we have to also make up our minds about the statistics. I'm going to read the statistics to you. And statistics says that listen, in 4 people will be affected by mental or neurological disorder at some point in their lifetime. Now we're about 30 on this call. Now look at 1 in 4. Unfortunately, many we've been taught in Africa to wear a mask. You ask a man how you feeling, said it's fine, I'm just stressed. And you find out that when you sit with them in coaching sessions, there's a whole lot going under, beneath that they are not even willing to share. And many men have bottled up their emotions, not because they don't want to talk, but they haven't found a safe space in their spouses or their fiancés or their girlfriends who will be able to handle their truth. And that's why I always say to people, is your empathy button switched off or is it switched on? Because sometimes when you have gone through trauma, particularly childhood trauma, the tendency for you to shut your bowel of compassion to any and everyone who perhaps would need your help. So question is, why is it that in Africa, it's often treated in silence? Stigmatization. There's a lot of stigmatization that we're still dealing with. Recently I was speaking to someone in way back South Africa about how we need to link mental health and marriages. What majority of the challenges in marriages are linked to the mental health. In fact, statistics that was about 3-4 years ago for a particular rehabilitation center that we partner with said to me that we have many people who are in rehabs because of marriage related issues than any other issue. A woman who was heartbroken, a woman who her husband cheated on her and she couldn't bear it. It's a major issue, but not many people are talking about the impact, of not being flexible, not being adaptable, because our spouses will change. This was not me 20 years ago. It's not. I mean, so I have evolved, and my wife had to catch up. She had also evolved. I've had to catch up. Now, not being able to evolve and be able to scale is one of the reasons why marriages are having issues. And I don't want to flog that because I'm extremely passionate about marriage. Then also, it's important for us to know that mental health is not a destination. No, mental health is a process. All right. And the process is not just about where the drive, the process is about where you are going. And where we're going is to be able to ensure that at least we increase awareness, we increase personal awareness, organizational awareness. So it's a process. So I said 1 in 4 people in Africa are affected by mental health issues. Another statistics I don't want to leave my thoughts, finish my session without mentioning is the fact that stigma and lack of resources contributes to a silent epidemic. I'm going to say that again. Stigma and lack of resources contributes to a silent epidemic. We're dealing with it. I don't want to mention names of universities I've had to do some work for, in Ibadan, in Ado-Ekiti, in Lagos, about the epidemic of mental health issues, addiction-related issues, and some of those things are triggered by dysfunctional homes, right? So if the family is the production center of the society, then it becomes needful for husbands and wives to transcend the smallness of the reason why they are marrying is just because we want to have kids. Many people get married even for the wrong reason. I don't want to even flog that. The third statistics that is so scary but yet very true says that less than 1% of healthcare budgets in African nations are allocated to mental health. Very sad. Less than 1%. Meanwhile, mental health is at the heart of almost everything. So if less than 1% of the budget is allocated to mental health, where the challenges are. Years ago, myself and Mr. Lanre and a few other people, we had someone in the National Assembly. That was when President Goodluck Jonathan was still in power. We tried to push the bill. We tried to get the Senate, the House of Rep, to pass the bill on, ensuring that mental health policies are elevated. Go to Nigeria's 1999 constitution. You will be shocked about what's written about mental health. The only thing that is in our constitution as a nation about mental health is about psychosis, people who are already on the road and who have misbehaving. Very sad. So if 1%, and you and I know how corruption is in Africa, if 1% of budget is of health is allocated to mental health, or you already know that it's not going to be a priority for African leaders. And that's why everyone attending this meeting, I want to encourage you, to be an advocate. Because listen, the mind is everything. The mind is everything. What you think you will become. All right. And many people, because of the change that is so consistent, yet many people are not adapting, has become a major issue. Because what I've found is the rate of change, is not directly proportional to the rate of flexibility and adaptability of an average person. All right. So, and the gap honestly exists. They're not just being amplified. They exist. But honestly, they are not insurmountable. There's something we can do about it. But the question is, are you willing to make the change? Are you willing to be a part of the advocacy about mental health so we can have a space where many more people can have access to mental health? Many years ago, one of my mentors invited me to speak to pastors. And one of the things I said to them is that we need to begin to have hubs, mental health hubs. There are some people that will not come because of our gospel, but if we can put a budget to say, okay, there's a therapist who will, be at the church office, or will be at, maybe a place, if you don't want to attach it to the church, that is paid for, where people can come and talk about their issues, get solutions, and that can be a funnel, for their growth. But I mean, nobody really saw it because it's not something that is popularly done. So my advocacy is back to individuals, a few HR managers who are my friends, to say we've got to prioritize mental health. We have to prioritize psychological safety. And don't forget, in the beginning I said we need to make the future a compensation for the past. Africa has terribly, suffered, mental health gaps because of lack of resources and because of stigmatization, among many other things. So, what can we do? What can you and I do? What is my appeal to you? What can make this meeting meaningful? Not because you attend, because change, they say, is the only constant thing in life. But you see, and change in mental health is is the needed change that we need in Africa. I'm telling you. So what can you and I do? Number one, we need to increase public awareness and education. Use your status, use your platform, get a quote from this meeting, paste it on your stories. I don't know whether we have an hashtag for today's meeting, but we can trend. If we're about 30 of us, if everybody treats, and it's not about the trend, it's about the education. And social media can amplify any voice, anything. So you and I need to be a part of increasing public awareness and education. Number two, what can we do? Let's ensure that governments and local leaders begin to prioritize mental health. And listen, it will be difficult for leaders and, government to prioritize mental health if we don't stand up and begin to have NGOs like MDA, have people who are solo advocates, who are saying we need the voices of people to be heard. We need to stop the stigmatization. We need to allocate budgets. I can tell you for free, I've been part of religious community, and I've consulted for quite some, from the top to the bottom. And I've been privileged to be in strategy meetings. And I can tell you, I can't remember any of them's got a budget, for the mental health of their church members, or mental health of, it's just the reality. All right. So what do we do? So that's generic. So what do we do as individuals? So if you know me very well, I like acronyms so I can remember things very well. So the first thing I said, we need to heal, educate, raise awareness, engage communities and leaders, access to, and part of it is, you and I can be a part of this course. I always say something. You say kindness is human. When you pay your children's school fees, that's not kindness, that's duty. When you give to a cause, that's kindness, that's human. It's only humans that can be kind. Animals can be kind. All right. And part of what I want to advocate today is to have more partners join the MDA. get a small part of your income, send it to the MDA account, let them reach where you can't reach. I've added a partnership team before for an organization, religious organization. And honestly, you'll be shocked how much we were able to reach, rural areas, reach more people, because £1 there, £2 there, 20K there, £1 here, $2 here, put together helped us reach more people. The same way, when we're talking about what we need to do to heal the bridge the gap, and like I said, the heal approach is help educate and raise awareness. I've mentioned that, engage local communities and leaders. I like what Precious and the team they're doing. They're getting out there, to see. And sometimes before people can support you, you have to keep doing something consistently before the partners begin to say, okay, what can we help you do to amplify your voice? Okay. Then also we need to ensure that there's access to affordable mental health services. We need religious organizations. We need professional organizations, industries, captains of industries, to begin to put a budget aside. Okay, and the L, we need to lead mental health initiatives with compassion and policy support. Now, your compassion will be useless if there's no policy support. Okay, so I will take the acronym one after the other, then I will break it down. So when I talk about H, being able to create awareness and all of that, honestly speaking, we need more voices to be out there. You see, communities have the power to heal, and their leaders can be the change agents. That's why I'm saying I need more change agents from this meeting, change makers, because they say it takes a village to raise a child, but I also like to add it takes a village to heal a community. All right, we have transferred trauma from generation to generation. We can transfer healing, we can transfer love, but you see, you can't give what you don't have. Okay. And you see, when we talk about all of this, we need to consistently know that this requires financial input. All right. I know this costed them some money, so very, very important that we launch campaign to demystify mental health. We use social media, public forums to promote mental well-being. We train educators, community leaders to identify mental health challenges. And that's why I have a whole lot of regard for Dari. Years back, I used to do certification for, ASAD listeners, people who just want to listen, people who are being trained to listen without judgments. And there's a confidentiality agreement form that whatever is said there stays there. So we need to build those partnerships. Then also we need to begin to be a part of ensuring that there is access to affordable mental health services. Honestly, an average person cannot afford my services. I'm telling you, it's still luxury. And sometimes even when I now say, okay, I'm going to, give discounts and all of that, it encroaches into my time. So there's limited things I can do. Someone asked me recently, if you tell me what you want to earn every month, what would you like to do in exchange for your time? Honestly, for the rest of my life, I won't talk about mental health. Maybe at some point connected to marriages, because it's so much deficit. All right. So we need to, make mental health service available. And like I said, and I'm going to say this again and again, don't leave this meeting without asking for the MD. They've not asked me to say this, trust me, for the MD account, so you can be a partner. I'm sure there should be a form for partners, because affordable mental health care is a human right, it's not a privilege. And we need to make that a reality. Maybe in Europe and America it's that way, but in Africa it's still a huge privilege. And we need to begin to tell ourselves, that access should never be a barrier to healing. And I'm going to say that again. Access should never be a barrier to healing. It's time for affordable care to become a reality. Affordable mental health is not yet a reality. We have to be a part of it, Someone say, oh, it's just 5K, that 5K in 100 places. It's a human right, yeah? Access should not be a barrier to healing. Access should not be a barrier to mental well-being. Affordable mental health, care is a human right. It, I mean, I need someone to write that down. Put that on your status. Let's be there. Let's amplify, this voice. A few weeks ago, I came to Nigeria, and I was speaking to a particular young man who was asking me on how they can partner with the things I do and all of that. And I said, well, for me, if I need any partner at this time, is to be able to get people to pay for my sessions, right? Then I can throw it out there and scale who is on a priority scale that I can take in. Yeah, we have CSR from time to time. I take people for free as part of my CSR of giving back. But the only thing I have is my time to exchange for the value I give, and that value in exchange is what I use as my income, right? So there's a limit at what I can do. That's why I partner with ASARD, I partner with MDA to see how we can give discounted rates. But not everyone's got that understanding. All right. So I'm saying, in essence, there's a call for a new type of thinking. All right. We can't afford to just transfer trauma from generation to generation. Let's transform awareness. Let's transfer awareness. Let's transfer, partnership. I know that people here, perhaps you're a Christian, you partner with your pastor to reach the rural areas. Also, we need to raise partners with organizations that are willing to go out there to empower young people. It's a major challenge at the moment. There are too many kids who, by virtue of their parents not being healed of their own trauma, then parenting style have transferred trauma to them, and the cycle continues. Okay, so let's make up our mind to be a part of this. All right. Government need to allocate funds for mental health and healthcare budgets. Yes, I agree. But honestly, for policy support, we need some of you here to be in government to be able to influence how things are done. Then we also need to advocate for low cost counseling and therapy services, like I said, particularly, among the young people. You see, I believe that the better the families, the better the society. A former presidential candidate, I reached out to me years ago and said, "Oh, I heard that you were in a team of one of the presidential candidates. We need your strategy and all of that." So he was sharing with me about a new Nigeria, and I was like, "Reality is, I would like to be a part of what you are doing, but I don't believe there can be a new Nigeria without a new perspective to homes." The family is the production center of the society. If you want better mental health, we have to do massive education for people who are parenting or about to parent. Unfortunately, many people have a budget for marriage, they don't have a budget for counseling. So we're largely hypocritical in Africa. We're more emotionally driven than system driven. We don't have system thinking, and that's why it's difficult for an average African to be able to think 5 years. Even I know when the year is over, it's Happy New Year. It's not Happy New 5 years. So we're short-sighted, for very obvious reasons. So we have to begin to make up our mind to put our money where our mouth is. The deficit can be closed. One statement I'll keep repeating is we need to make the future a compensation for the past. Our parents have suffered from mental health. Our uncles have suffered from mental health. We can't continue to allow that trend to continue. We have to make provision for the next generation to be able to particularly begin to embrace flexibility and adaptability. And that comes from education, from awareness, from massive. If maybe I have someone in government and they says, "Oh, what position would you be? We want to give you a political appointment." I want to be the chairman of National Orientation Agency. I don't know what they are doing, because we need to reorientate the populace to understand that the family is the production center of the society. So when we're trying to do a better Nigeria, it's just like you are trying to tell a mango tree to start to produce orange, then you are going to cut the tree. No, if you want a better Nigeria, we have to go back to the families. The local government chairman who is stealing did not fall from heaven; he came from a family. The government, the governors, the president who don't listen to anyone, he didn't fall from heaven. He came from a family. So he had first learned to disobey his family before he had learned to disobey his community, his nation, and his generation. So it's important to do that. And also, I've always been an advocate of we have to leverage telemedicine and digital health solutions for remote areas. Just the same way we have, missionaries who go to remote areas. We need, and they're part of the. At some point, I saw a statistic recently. Migration, how people migrate to the city, it's amazing. In the next few years, some of where you call your city, your village, will soon become, empty because people are moving to the city. All right. So the way we chunk out missionaries who have gone to Lanlate, who have gone to the villages in Burum, in Jos. We have to trunk out mental health advocates, people who can go around and begin to learn cultural awareness in a way that it can communicate mental health, to an average person. I did a training years ago for one of the big brands, was for the drivers of a major organization I just don't want to mention because of confidentiality, and we had to adapt the same psycho education we wanted to give to them into storytelling and visual aids, and they were able to. I still give that to one of my proteges who now manages the drivers of one of the big brands at the moment. You say English cannot reach these people, or you can't. All your Turanchi will just go into the drain. You have to find ways to tell stories to bypass their conscious mind and let them embrace the reality. So we need to leverage telemedicine, technology to get that done. And lastly, we need to lead mental health initiatives with compassion and policy support, like I said earlier. I just want to break that down. I know my time is up because you see, leadership is not about being in charge. I don't believe that leadership is about being in charge. Leadership is about, taking care of those in your charge. Can I say that again? Leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those who are in your charge. Unfortunately, that's not the narrative for a lot of African leaders. However, I don't believe that politicians have changed their nation. If you have seen the video, Men Who Change America, We Change Your Perspective, I believe that organizations like MDA, like Assad, where we have to champion it. And honestly, it won't look like nothing is happening. But you see, the more we get people aware, the more we make mental health coaching affordable, the more we do telemedicine, the more we leverage on technology, the better. So if you have any leader in this call, or you are a leader in your very small circle, please know that leadership is not about being in charge. It is about taking care of those who are in your charge. And a lot of people in your charge, they're dealing with the issues. An average African home grew up from a dysfunctional background. They're traumatized, like childhood trauma. When I'm doing my, I have a product, for people who are preparing to be married. I don't just sit both couples down. I first help them declutter. And part of the sessions or what I do there is I do, childhood therapy. Childhood trauma, because a lot of people will carry that childhood trauma into their home, and they'll be wondering what exactly is the problem. So we need to begin to be those advocates. And lastly, like I said, leadership isn't about people who are in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. And the best way to predict the future is to create it. That's something that Abraham Lincoln said. So to round it up, we need more mental health policies, and we must drive those advocacies in a way that they're implemented, in a way that they're enforced at all levels. Recently, I was, we have a taste for foreign things. Someone who I tried to reach while I was back in Nigeria didn't respond, reached out to me, changed the address on, my proposal, and I was like, oh, we need someone foreign. It was the same thing I was going to say. That's discussion for another day. But what was I about to say? She said to me that, or the gentleman said to me that they wanted to improve psychological safety in the organization. And I said to the gentleman, I said, I will not be a part of this training if the top management, middle management are not a part of it. She said, why? I said, because they're the ones who drive policy. They're the ones who drive the culture. They dragged me away, they came back, and I tell everyone to turn on their camera, because I don't want someone to turn on their camera and they're already, doing something else. Why did I say that? I said that because African leadership is highly hypocritical. We don't put our money where our mouth is. And it's important for us to begin to ensure that the mental health policies are implemented, even if you're in HR, whatever you're doing, and we have to have more champions, people who champion mental health leadership within government, corporate, and non-profit sectors. Then also we need to encourage compassion-based approaches in mental health care. Okay, so I hope that my short speech has been of a blessing to someone. It's a privilege to be the keynote speaker for this event. I'm really passionate about mental health. Please let's support MDA, let's support Assad, let's be advocates, and let's ensure that we're part of the journey and the movement required to make mental health affordable, usable, and make it part of our policy. Thank you for having me, and do enjoy the rest of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Dr. Babajide. Honestly, I have like my book here with all the notes, basically getting every tidbit you shared today. And honestly, I'm sure I'm not the only one. A couple of people on the chat box probably have questions, but we're going to just say, hold your horses with the questions, just yet. But I would like to get if anybody can just share like tips of what they've learned, one thing that stood out for you in this particular session. So maybe we'll just give room for like 2 or 3 people to share one thing that stood out to you in this session. These are a very, very strategic opportunity to like just come out and just let us know one thing that you learned. For me, I would say it actually drew my attention to the need to not just seek for safe spaces, but to also be a safe space for someone. Because in order for you to want to be vulnerable and having to seek for that opportunity, you also need to create that space where you can share and be vulnerable. Because sometimes we also invalidate people in certain things, and it can also be in the little things, because we're sharing our expressions, or we're like, when someone comes and tells you, I'm having a really bad day, you sometimes can respond, is it only you? I went through this, and those are little ways that we basically invalidate other people. And it's great to actually get like a reminder on those things, and then getting those little tips. I think it's really, I think it's something that we also need to draw into our consciousness. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have it all figured out. You can start from now. And one of the best things is that MDA has myriads of resources that you can use, myriads of resources that you can read. You cannot say that you don't understand mental health at this point in time. The resources are there. There are platforms there that actually teach you what mental health is. You don't necessarily need to have the certifications like, you need to be a therapist, you need to become a psychologist. No, you can start from where you are. In fact, personally, I started my journey as a mental health advocate, and then before moving on to global arts and medicine, and then joining several communities and really understanding what mental health is all about. So there is a space for everybody. If you're an artist, if you're someone. Okay, so we have a question here. I know it's not time for question, but because I think that we still have a few minutes before our speaker comes in, so we're going to just allow for that. So someone asks here, does that mean mental health is contagious? I have the answer, but I would like for Dr. Tunji to give us a very interesting perspective on this.
Absolutely. Mental health is contagious. How do I mean? So if you live around people who've got very unhealthy, people who express unhealthy emotions, people who are slaves of their emotions, people who haven't mastered their emotions, you are largely going to see that as how things done. I mean, for everyone who has been a victim or has been a survivor of a marriage where their dad beats their mom, or now these days is the mom beats their dad, they will grow up believing that beating is a way to resolve issues, right? So that being said, it's contagious because the environment is already, giving expression to that. And I can tell you for free, the more emotionally resilient, so mom beats that now. For me, this is what I do regularly. So I was telling my wife recently, if I share half of what is in my head with an average person, you'll just collapse. Anyway, So yeah, it's contagious, and that's why I said we can transfer. We should not just transfer trauma from generations. We can transfer healing. The love acronym I shared earlier: listen without judgment, open-hearted, being vulnerable, validating emotions, and encouraging people, encouraging yourself. So yeah, because the architects, the people who will be the architect of the future also need to be conscious of their environment, because you can't give what you don't have. You need to model it. That's why part of advocacy, you have to first be learn to be flexible and adaptable in a very changing world. Your flexibility and adaptability quotient has to be high, for you to, beyond just being the advocate, model the advocacy of the things that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. That was no, I've just said an outright yes or no, but I'm so happy that you were able to break it down on how it actually is contagious. I was going to say no, it's not,
Oh
but
yeah, it's
looking
very
at
contagious.
certain traits that we pick up from people from being in certain environments,
Yeah.
definitely we can say that is contagious, because we I think it's saying that you are the sum total of the people you hang out with. So the same thing with your
Yeah.
emotions, with your environment, and all that. So
Can
it
I ask
is
something?
contagious. Yes,
Can
sir.
I- Okay, so the last time anyone was original was a day after you were born. A lot of people became victims of their parents' ignorance, victims of their aunties, uncles, nurses. So we have all likely been programmed. We have been programmed to live in certain ways. So when people say you violated my values, I'm like, really? Those values are not yours. Those values are inherited. So when someone says, "Oh, I have OCD," no, go and check where you found it. Oh, I have eyes for order. You have to make up your mind to admit that you didn't drop from heaven. Some people shaped the values you have. And that's why for me, I'm very big on patterns. When people come to me, I'm like, so what are the patterns of your history? What did you see your mom do? Out of your mom or your dad, who do you resemble the most? Where did you find anger from? Where do you find malice from? So that being said, you have to make up your mind to be the architect of your own life. All right. And outcomes are not determined by variables, they are determined by constant. And the only thing that is a constant to you is how you are able to prepare yourself for the uncertainties and the um, change that is available. And that only happens when your adaptability and your flexibility is top notch. Thank you.
You so much for that. We do like have a couple things in the comment, but we have someone who's asking for you to repeat the love acronym. But if I got that right, you're saying that you have to listen to understand, not
Yeah.
necessarily to respond. You have to
Yeah.
be open-hearted. That means you have to be adaptable and flexible, where you share the difference between adaptability and flexibility.
Yeah.
Flexibility is in the short term, and adaptability is in the long term. Then you said vulnerability and being able to validate people's emotions, and then encouragement, being able to encourage yourself as well as others, because you cannot give what you do not have. So that is the acronym for love, and I hope that has helped you, Cynthia, because I know that you're the one who's asking that question. So we have someone who's also agreeing with you, saying yes, you're right. Some ladies and guys won't marry because of what they saw in their parents' marriage.
Yeah. And they need to heal before they go into it. Many people don't get the healing required before they fall in love. And you see, trauma affects attachment styles. The kind of trauma, if you've been harassed, raped, it shapes your attachment style. So that's why sometimes you see husband and wife fight. One wants to talk, one wants to withdraw. Once I find that, I know that there was something in their history that affected how they see their world. All right. And that's why we need to partner with MGA so that they can, you know, pay mental health coaches, because mental health coaches are the bridge between awareness and action. And that's for me very important. Jay, this is why I don't want to marry. You can marry, but heal before you marry. That's my encouragement. Thank you. Akinwale Mayo is a better Mario. All right. Do we have more questions before I take my leave?
We have a Q&A session coming
Okay.
up after the second speaker, who is our speaker one for the session. So that's going to be in about 30 to 40 minutes. And I'm sure the host would encourage and give other housekeeping rules.
Okay. All right. Thank you for having me, Precious.